They lived beneath our cities, the hidden alien civilization on Earth.
No one ever thought to look down.
For thousands of years, humanity looked up at the stars, wondering who might be watching from above.
Telescopes searched the sky. Satellites listened for signals.
Scientists waited for messages from distant galaxies.
But the truth was buried beneath our feet.
Deep under the concrete, steel, and stone of human cities, something ancient had been listening to us.
It began with a sound.
A low vibration that sensors in underground train tunnels started to record. At first, engineers blamed old pipes, shifting rock, or small earthquakes.
But the vibrations followed patterns.
They pulsed slowly, like breathing.
Then they stopped. And that was when people began to disappear.
The first reports came from Istanbul. Entire maintenance crews vanished while working in the deep subway tunnels.
No screams. No signs of collapse.
Just empty helmets, still warm lights, and tools dropped mid-use.
Security cameras showed something impossible. The walls moved. Not collapsed. Not cracked. They opened.
As if the stone itself had briefly turned soft, swallowing the workers whole before sealing again. Officials sealed the tunnels and blamed geological instability. But the truth didn't stay buried for long.
The same thing happened in Tokyo.
Then Mexico City.
Then New York. Always deep underground. Always quiet. Always clean.
No bodies.
No blood. Just absence. Dr. Maya Ren was not supposed to be involved. She was a linguist, not a geologist.
Her specialty was decoding ancient, dead languages, scripts carved into tablets, ruins, and bones. But when a subway wall in Berlin revealed markings that looked intentional, she was called in.
The markings were impossible. They weren't carved.
They were grown. The stone had been shaped from the inside outward, forming symbols that shimmered faintly under light. They rearranged themselves when no one was watching. Maya felt sick when she saw them.
"These aren't warnings," she whispered.
"They're greetings." The symbols repeated across the wall, forming a message once she translated their pattern.
"We have always been here."
As governments tried to hide the truth, something unexpected happened.
People started listening.
Urban explorers, tunnel workers, and subway drivers began reporting whispers, soft, musical voices echoing through tunnels long after trains passed. Children living near old underground systems started drawing the same shapes.
Spirals within spirals. Cities under cities.
And then, one night, the ground beneath Shanghai opened.
Not violently. Gently.
A perfect circular opening formed in a sealed subway station, descending into darkness lit by a pale blue glow.
Drones were sent first.
They returned with impossible footage. A vast underground world stretched beneath the city, structures grown, not built. Towers curved like bones.
Roads flowed like veins.
Soft lights pulsed in rhythm, as if the entire city was alive. And moving within it were beings no one had ever imagined. They were tall and slender, their forms shifting subtly as they moved.
Their skin shimmered like liquid stone. Their eyes reflected memories instead of light.
They looked up at the drones.
And they bowed.
When the first direct contact was made, the beings did not attack.
They spoke inside human minds.
Not with words, but with memories. Images flooded the minds of the scientists watching the feed.
A young Earth. Oceans forming.
Life struggling to crawl from water to land.
And beneath it all, them.
They had arrived before humans learned to shape stone. Refugees from a dying star system, fleeing a cosmic catastrophe that erased entire galaxies. They could not survive sunlight or Earth's unstable atmosphere for long, so they went underground.
And they waited.
They watched dinosaurs rise and fall.
They watched humans learn to speak.
They helped quietly, nudging evolution, guiding instincts, shaping dreams. They were the reason humans felt drawn to caves, myths, and the idea that something lived below. But as humanity grew louder, more violent, more destructive, the beings retreated deeper.
Until now.
The beings called themselves the Valari. And they were afraid. Deep beneath the earth, something older than both humans and Valari was stirring.
Something that fed on planetary cores.
Something the Valari had once sealed away, using the planet itself as a prison. Human mining, drilling, and deep earth weapons had weakened the seal.
The planet was waking up. And it was hungry.
The Valari had two choices.
Stay hidden and let Earth die.
Or reveal themselves and ask humanity for help.
They chose the second.
When the first Valari ambassador emerged in daylight, the world froze. It stood in the center of an abandoned city square, glowing softly, shielding itself from the sun with a translucent field. Every camera broadcast the moment live. The being raised its hand
and spoke aloud.
We lived beneath your cities because you were not ready to know us. We stayed silent because your fear destroys what it does not understand. But now your world and ours share the same fate.
The ground trembled. Across the planet, volcanoes rumbled. Oceans warmed.
Something massive shifted far below the crust. The Valari looked at humanity with what could only be described as sorrow.
You were never alone, it said.
And now, you must choose whether we survive together.
The world did not sleep that night.
Every screen on Earth replayed the same image, the glowing figure standing in the ruined city square, its voice calm, ancient, and heavy with truth. News channels tried to explain it. Governments tried to deny it.
Religious leaders tried to interpret it.
But deep inside, people already knew. The world had changed forever. The Valari did not speak again for 3 days.
During that time, strange things began happening across the planet.
Seismographs recorded rhythms instead of random tremors. The planet's magnetic field pulsed like a heartbeat. Animals fled cities in mass migrations, as if responding to a signal older than instinct. And beneath the surface, something moved. Dr. Maya Ren was brought into a hidden underground facility built decades earlier for nuclear emergencies. It was now the first official meeting place between humans and the Valari. The air down there felt thick, almost alive. When the Valari appeared again, they did not walk. They seemed to rise from the stone itself, forming from shimmering layers of mineral and light.
We will show you, they said.
The walls melted away. Not physically, mentally. Suddenly, everyone in the chamber was standing on a vision of the Earth as it was billions of years ago.
The Valari showed the past.
Earth was young, violent, and unstable.
Volcanoes covered the land. Meteors struck constantly. The sky burned red.
And beneath it all, something moved. A vast consciousness, older than life itself, born from pressure and heat.
It fed on planetary energy.
It did not think as humans did, but it hungered endlessly.
The Valari called it the devourer below.
They had not created it.
They had found it.
Long ago, the Valari were explorers, scientists and builders who traveled between stars by bending space itself. When they arrived at Earth, they sensed the creature immediately.
It was sleeping. But it would awaken one day. And when it did, the planet would die. The Valari tried to destroy it. They failed. Instead, they did the only thing they could. They built a prison. Using their technology and Earth's own crust, they wrapped the creature in layers of gravitational locks. They buried it deep within the mantle and anchored its consciousness to the planet itself. Earth became both cage and key. And the Valari became its wardens. The vision changed. Millions of years passed in moments. The Valari weakened over time. Earth's gravity, radiation, and magnetic field were never meant for them. Their bodies adapted, but at a cost. They could no longer leave. They could no longer reproduce as they once had. Their civilization shrank. So they turned inward, building cities below, connecting their minds, preserving knowledge. And then humans appeared. Fragile. Curious. Dangerous. The Valari debated what to do. Some wanted to guide humanity openly.
Others feared humans would awaken the devourer early.
So they chose silence.
They watched as humans learned fire, then metal, then machines.
They watched wars. They watched cruelty.
They watched kindness too. And slowly, they realized something terrifying. Human technology was approaching the same power that had once awakened the devourer on another world.
Drilling. Fracturing. Nuclear weapons.
Each vibration weakened the prison. The first true crack formed decades ago, deep beneath the Pacific. It was small.
Almost harmless. But something reached through it. Not a body. A thought.
The devourer whispered into human dreams.
It didn't speak in words. It spoke in ambition. Power. Progress. Control.
The Valari recognized the pattern immediately. Human history's darkest moments, world wars, mass destruction, unchecked consumption, were not accidents.
They were echoes. The creature was learning how to speak to humans. Using them.
And now, with modern drilling reaching deeper than ever before, the prison was failing fast. When the Valari finished showing the vision, the room was silent.
Many of the scientists were crying. Some were furious.
So this is our fault, one general demanded. You let this happen.
The Valari replied calmly. No.
You are not guilty of being young.
But now you are powerful, another voice echoed in their minds.
And power carries responsibility. They explained that the devourer was waking.
Small tremors were its breathing. Volcanic eruptions were its shifting limbs.
If it fully awakened, the planet would crack like an egg.
There would be no escape. Not to space. Not to another world.
The devourer would follow, drawn by gravity and mass.
The only hope was to reinforce the prison. But the Volari could no longer do it alone. They needed humanity's help. The plan was almost unthinkable.
Human technology would be combined with Volari bioarchitecture to create stabilizing nodes across the planet, deep below major cities.
Each node would anchor the prison and strengthen the planetary shell. But the process would require sacrifice. Cities would need to be partially abandoned.
Millions would have to move.
And the truth would have to be revealed to everyone.
Panic would be unavoidable.
War was possible.
But silence would mean extinction.
The Volari asked one final question.
Will you stand with us, or will you let your world die quietly beneath your feet? Above them, the planet groaned. A deep, ancient sound echoed through stone and sea.
The devourer was waking faster now. And time was running out. The world did not agree.
That was the first truth everyone had to face. When the Volari's message was broadcast, when the maps of danger zones and stabilization sites were revealed, humanity fractured overnight.
Some people believed. Others refused. And many chose to pretend none of it was real.
The Volari identified 12 major regions across the planet where the planetary prison was weakest. They were all places humans had built their greatest cities.
New York, Shanghai, Mumbai, Istanbul, Mexico City, Tokyo,
Lagos,
Sao Paulo.
Beneath each one, deep below bedrock, massive energy fractures pulsed like wounds. To seal them, entire underground sections had to be reshaped, collapsed in controlled ways, fused with Volari structures, and stabilized using human machines.
That meant something unthinkable.
Parts of these cities had to be abandoned forever.
Millions would need to leave their homes. Entire histories would be buried.
When the announcement was made, the world erupted. Protests filled the streets.
Some people screamed that it was a lie.
Others called it an alien invasion disguised as salvation. Conspiracy theories spread faster than truth. And beneath it all, the planet continued to tremble. The first city to choose was Tokyo. Not because they wanted to, but because the ground beneath it began to fail. Sensors detected a massive surge of energy beneath the Pacific plate. The Volari warned that if nothing was done, the devourer would break through there first. The government issued evacuation orders.
Millions fled. But millions stayed. Some out of denial. Some out of fear. Some because they believed Earth itself was lying. Then, one night, the ground sang.
A deep, harmonic sound echoed through the city, rattling windows and bones alike. The sky glowed faintly purple as if reflecting something beneath the surface.
And then the earth opened. Not violently. Carefully. Buildings sank, not shattered.
Streets folded inward like cloth being gently pulled. The Volari emerged in massive numbers for the first time, their bodies forming living frameworks of light and stone. Human machines followed, drones, cranes, stabilizers, working alongside alien constructs. For 3 days, the city reshaped itself. When it was over, a massive circular region of Tokyo was gone. In its place stood a smooth, glowing plateau of alien architecture, silent, humming, and alive.
The first anchor was complete. The world watched in horror and awe.
Casualties were lower than expected, but the psychological damage was enormous.
People realized something terrifying. The earth was no longer just theirs. Religions split. Some declared the Volari angels.
Others called them demons. A few believed the devourer was the true god beneath creation. Wars broke out, not between nations, but between beliefs. In some regions, people attacked stabilization zones, trying to free the planet. In others, citizens defended the Volari, forming human shields around construction sites. Dr. Maya Ren traveled constantly, acting as a bridge between species.
She saw the truth in both sides. Fear was not evil, but ignorance was deadly.
As more anchors activated, something unexpected happened. The devourer began to change.
It did not rage. It whispered.
People across the world began hearing voices in their dreams, not commands, but questions. Why do you fear me? Why must I sleep while you destroy the surface?
Some who listened too long began to change. They became calmer. colder.
They lost empathy, but gained certainty. They formed groups called the Awakened, believing the Devourer was Earth's true consciousness, and that humanity was a parasite.
The Valari were alarmed.
The Devourer was learning faster than they had predicted.
It was adapting to the human mind.
During an emergency council, the Valari revealed the final truth.
The prison could be stabilized.
But it would not last forever. The Devourer was evolving. There would come a day when even the reinforced shell would fail.
Unless someone replaced it. A living mind.
A consciousness vast enough to contain the Devourer's awareness and keep it dormant.
A guardian. A jailer. A god. The room fell silent.
You mean sacrifice, a human leader whispered.
The Valari nodded.
One consciousness, they said, joined with the planet. Forever. No body.
No return.
Just endless watchfulness. Humanity stared at the impossible choice. Who could be asked to give up everything, to become a living prison for a world?
And before anyone could answer, the ground shook violently.
Alarms screamed. And far beneath the mantle, something ancient and immense began to wake fully. The world stopped arguing. Not because people suddenly agreed, but because fear had become too heavy to carry. The tremors were no longer rare. They came daily now, sometimes hourly. Entire coastlines shifted by centimeters overnight. Volcanoes that had slept for centuries began to breathe smoke again. The Devourer was waking. And everyone felt it. The Valari gathered humanity's leaders, scientists, and representatives in a deep chamber beneath what was once Geneva. The chamber itself was alive, softly glowing with shifting patterns that responded to emotion.
The Valari spoke carefully.
To bind the Devourer permanently, they said, a consciousness must replace the ancient seal. Not a machine. Not a program. A mind capable of empathy, sacrifice, and endurance.
The silence was heavy. Someone finally asked the question no one wanted to hear.
Who?
The Valari answered honestly. We do not know.
It must be a willing choice. A mind strong enough to endure eternity, and human enough to care. The world reacted in waves. At first, people laughed in disbelief.
Then came anger. Then fear. And finally, volunteers. They came from everywhere.
Scientists who felt responsible for technological progress.
Religious leaders who believed this was divine calling.
Ordinary people who had lost everything to earthquakes and collapses. They stood in lines outside testing centers, offering their lives to save the world. But almost all were rejected. The process was not physical. It was mental. Candidates were connected briefly to the planetary consciousness under Valari supervision.
Most minds broke instantly. Some screamed. Some went silent. Some never woke up.
The Devourer's presence was too vast, too ancient. Human thought shattered against it like glass. Dr. Maya Wren did not volunteer. She had seen too much suffering to believe sacrifice should ever be forced. But when the tests continued to fail, the Valari came to her. You have been listening to the planet your entire life, they said. You hear what others ignore. Maya refused.
I'm not special, she said.
I'm just tired.
But the tremors worsened. Entire regions sank into the sea. The Devourer's thoughts grew louder.
And one night, as Maya slept, the earth spoke to her.
Not in words. In memory. She felt continents forming.
Oceans cooling. Life learning to breathe.
And beneath it all, loneliness.
A vast, aching loneliness that had lasted billions of years. When she woke, she was crying. She knew what she had to do. The process began deep beneath the surface, in a chamber older than any human structure.
The Valari formed a circle around Maya.
Machines hummed. The planet itself seemed to hold its breath. This will not kill you, the Valari said. But it will change you. Your body will fade. Your mind will expand. You will not be alone, but you will never be entirely human again.
Maya nodded. I know.
As the process began, she felt herself stretching, her thoughts expanding into stone, magma, gravity, and time.
She felt the Devourer. It noticed her. It resisted. It raged. But she did not fight it. She listened.
She shared memory, human laughter, music, loss, hope. For the first time in its existence, the Devourer hesitated. Confused. Curious.
Quiet. The tremors slowed. Volcanoes calmed. The magnetic field stabilized.
Across the world, people felt a strange peace settle in their chests.
Maya was gone. But she was also everywhere. In the deep mantle. In the rhythm of tectonic plates. In the subtle hum beneath every city. The Valari felt it too. The Devourer was no longer alone. It was being held. Guided.
The planet had a guardian again. The world mourned Maya Ren as a hero. Statues were raised.
Stories were told.
But beneath the ground, she lived on, not as a person, but as a presence. A quiet mind watching over a restless world. The Valari began to withdraw from the surface, their task complete. Before leaving, they left one final message for humanity. Your greatest strength was never your technology. It was your ability to care. And as long as you remember that, the world will endure. Far below, deep in the mantle, something ancient slept peacefully for the first time in eons. And the earth finally rested. The world did not end. That surprised everyone. After everything, the fear, the sacrifices, the trembling ground, people expected chaos or miracles. Instead, what came was silence. A deep, steady silence that felt like breathing. The earth had changed, but it was no longer screaming. In the months after Maya became the guardian, earthquakes faded into memory.
Volcanoes slept. Storms softened.
Satellites showed something impossible. The planet's magnetic field had stabilized into a pattern scientists had never seen before, smooth, balanced, almost symmetrical.
It was as if Earth itself had relaxed. People around the world reported the same strange feeling.
A sense of being watched, not with threat, but with care. Children spoke of dreams where the ground hummed lullabies.
Animals grew calmer.
Forests regenerated faster than expected. The world was healing. Human society changed in quiet ways.
No single government ruled the planet. No empire rose.
Instead, a global agreement formed, not enforced by power, but by fear of repeating the past.
Deep drilling was restricted.
Weapons capable of cracking the crust were dismantled. Cities were redesigned to grow upward, not downward. The Valari remained mostly hidden, appearing only when guidance was needed. Their cities beneath the earth slowly dimmed, returning to a dormant watch. They had become guardians again, silent and patient.
Something unexpected began to happen.
Some children, born after the sealing, could sense the planet. They could feel tremors before machines detected them. They spoke of warmth beneath their feet, of a gentle presence watching over them. Doctors found nothing wrong.
The Valari understood.
Maya's consciousness, now merged with the planet, was learning how to communicate, not with words, but with instinct.
These children became listeners. Guides. A new kind of caretaker for the world. They were not powerful.
They were attentive. Decades later, the Valari gathered humanity one final time. They revealed that Maya's consciousness was stable, but changing.
She was becoming something new. Not human. Not planet. Something in between.
She is no longer alone, the Valari said. The Devourer is no longer a threat. It is learning.
Learning restraint.
Learning patience.
Learning coexistence.
The being that once sought to consume now simply was. And in its stillness, it protected the world it once would have destroyed. Human history moved forward. There were still wars, still mistakes, still pain.
But there was also awareness.
A shared understanding that the ground beneath every step was alive with memory.
Cities were built with reverence.
Stories of the deep were taught to children, not as fear, but as responsibility. And sometimes, in the quietest hours of night, people swore they could feel a heartbeat beneath their feet.
Steady. Patient. Protective.
Long after the Valari faded from the surface, long after Maya's name became legend, a final message spread across the world, not through screens or speakers, but through dreams. A single thought, shared by millions at once.
You are not alone. You never were.
And as long as you listen, you never will be.
The earth turned beneath the stars.
And for the first time in its long history, it was not alone in its thoughts. For a long time, Earth believed it was alone again.
The skies were quiet. No alien ships.
No messages from deep space. Only the slow rhythm of a living planet beneath human feet.
But silence, as humanity would learn, does not mean emptiness. It began with the observatories.
Radio telescopes across the world started detecting something strange, patterns not made of sound or light, but gravity.
Tiny ripples, too precise to be natural.
They came in repeating cycles, like a heartbeat echoing across the universe. Scientists were confused.
These signals weren't sent in the usual sense. They were responses. Something out there was reacting to Earth.
Deep beneath the crust, Maya felt it before anyone else. The distant pull. The gentle curiosity.
The stars were noticing her.
Through her connection to the devourer, now calm, aware, and contained, Earth had become a signal itself. A living beacon. Not one of technology, but of consciousness. The Valari had once traveled the cosmos searching for minds like their own. Now, others were doing the same. The first visitors did not arrive in ships. They arrived as distortions. Regions of space where light bent wrong, where time stretched thin. The Valari recognized them immediately. The Watchers, they said. Ancient observers who did not interfere, only recorded. They had been watching the universe since its early ages, cataloging civilizations that reached awareness without destroying themselves. Earth had just passed a test no one knew existed. For the first time, the Watchers turned their attention toward humanity.
The Watchers did not speak.
They offered.
A vision shared through the planet itself.
They showed humanity countless worlds that had risen and fallen. Civilizations that mastered technology but not restraint. Species that conquered galaxies and burned out in arrogance.
Then they showed a rare few who chose balance. Those who listened to their worlds. Those who endured. Earth now stood at that crossroads.
The choice was simple, yet terrifying. Remain isolated, safe, and small. Or join a greater community of conscious worlds, where every action echoed across the cosmos. The decision could not be made by leaders. It had to be felt by the planet itself.
And the planet now had a voice. Maya reached outward. Not with words. With emotion. With memory.
With love for fragile things. She showed the Watchers humanity's flaws, war, greed, fear, but also its art, its kindness, its longing to understand.
She showed them children planting trees.
Strangers helping one another after disasters.
People choosing hope even when it hurt. The Watchers listened.
For the first time in eons, they hesitated. Across the solar system, space bent gently.
Not tearing. Not exploding.
Opening. A doorway formed, not for ships, but for understanding.
The Valari bowed in reverence.
Humanity watched the stars pulse softly, as if breathing. A message echoed through minds across Earth.
You are not perfect, but you are becoming.
We will watch. We will wait. And then the presence withdrew. The universe felt closer.
Life on Earth continued.
Cities glowed at night like constellations.
Children learned not just history, but responsibility.
The ground beneath humanity remained warm and alive. Maya rested within the planet, aware and at peace. The devourer slept, not bound, but transformed. And above it all, the stars no longer felt distant.
They felt like neighbors. The change did not happen all at once. It never does.
It began quietly, in ways that could be ignored, until it could not. The children born after the awakening were different. Not in appearance, not at first. They laughed, cried, and learned like any others. But there were small signs, things parents noticed only after they happened again and again. A child who calmed a storm of panic with a single touch. A toddler who pointed at the ground and said, "It's tired today." A girl who woke from sleep and described earthquakes hours before they happened.
Doctors could find no abnormalities. But the Valari knew. These children were listening.
Not with ears, but with something deeper. As the years passed, the children began to find one another. Not through technology. Through dreams. They described the same glowing paths beneath the world, the same gentle voice that guided them without words. Maya was there too, not as a person, but as a presence. A warmth. A memory of kindness wrapped in gravity.
The children called her the heart below. She never commanded. She only reminded.
Care for each other. Listen before you act. Balance is not weakness.
Not everyone welcomed the change. Some governments feared losing control.
Some religious groups claimed the children were unnatural. Some corporations feared a world that could no longer be exploited.
Propaganda returned. The children were called dangerous. A few were taken away for study. That was the moment the planet responded. Not with violence, but with warning.
Entire regions experienced temporary silence.
No wind. No birds. No sound at all.
It lasted only minutes, but the message was clear.
The world was watching. And it was protecting its own. The Valari emerged once more. Not as rulers. As witnesses.
They revealed a truth they had long kept hidden. Long ago, Their species had children like these two, beings who could feel the pulse of worlds.
They had ignored them. They had chosen control over listening. And that choice had nearly destroyed them.
We will not repeat that mistake, the Volari said.
The children were not tools.
They were bridges.
Humanity changed course.
Education shifted. Children were taught not only math and science, but empathy, awareness, and restraint. Cities were redesigned to grow with the land instead of over it. Technology learned to listen to nature instead of dominating it.
The planet responded. Oceans slowly healed. Forests expanded. Storms softened. It wasn't perfect, but it was alive.
One night, every child born after the awakening dreamed the same dream.
They stood on a shore of light.
Beyond it, countless worlds shimmered, some bright, some fading. And a voice spoke, gentle and vast. You are not alone anymore. You are becoming something rare. Guard it. When they woke, they knew.
Humanity had crossed a threshold. The stars still watched.
The watchers still waited. But now, they were not alone in their vigilance. Earth had become something new.
Not a threat.
Not a victim.
But a living mind among many.
And beneath its cities, deep in stone and memory, the old guardians rested, no longer hiding.
Listening. Learning.
Waiting for the day humanity would step beyond its cradle, not to conquer the stars, but to meet them. Time passed differently now. Not faster.
Not slower. Deeper.
Humanity entered what historians would later call the Quiet Age. There were no great wars.
No world-ending threats.
No dramatic empires rising or falling. Instead, there was listening. Cities no longer fought the land beneath them. Buildings grew alongside living roots. Roads curved instead of cutting. Energy came from balance, not extraction. The planet responded gently, like a patient teacher finally heard. And beneath everything, Maya remained. Not as a voice, not as a person, but as awareness. A steady presence woven into stone, magma, and gravity itself.
The Volari did not vanish all at once.
They stayed long enough to ensure humanity could stand without them. Their cities beneath the earth slowly dimmed, their structures becoming part of the planet itself, living fossils of a past civilization that chose humility over dominance. Before leaving, they shared one final truth. Civilizations do not die when they fall, they said. They die when they stop listening. Then, quietly, they were gone. No ships.
No light.
Only the feeling of something ancient stepping back into the universe. The children who once heard the earth grew older. They became teachers, architects, healers, explorers. They never ruled. They guided. They taught people how to feel the rhythm of the world beneath their feet, how to sense when the land was tired, when the seas needed rest, when silence was more powerful than action. They were called many names. Listeners. Keepers. Earthborn. But they called themselves simply humans. One night, generations after the first awakening, the sky changed. Not with fear. With wonder. Stars shifted into patterns no telescope had ever seen. Soft light washed over the planet. And then, contact. Not a single voice. A chorus. Civilizations from across the galaxy, drawn by the same signal the Watchers once heard. A world that had learned restraint. A species that chose care over conquest. Earth had become a beacon, not of power, but of wisdom. Deep within the planet, Maya felt the moment come. Her task was complete. The devourer slept peacefully, no longer a threat, no longer a monster. It had become a guardian too. Maya released herself gently, dissolving into the rhythms of Earth. Before fading, she left one final feeling in every living mind. Gratitude. For life. For choice. For listening. From that day on, Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a participant. A voice in the great conversation of the cosmos. Travelers from distant stars would one day come, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as guests. And humanity would welcome them not with fear, but with understanding. Long after names and nations faded, long after even the stars changed their shapes, one truth remained carved into the memory of the universe. They lived beneath our cities. They watched us grow. And when the moment came, we chose to listen.